My name's Dermot Quigley. People call me D. That was a nickname given to me when I was a child, and it's just kind of stuck. I was born in Derry City, Ireland, in 1976. I was one of 5 children who lived and still do live in an area called Galia. Galia is basically a massive suburb on the outskirts of Derry. So we lived in what's called a housing executive house. So that's kind of it's basically a social housing kind of area. So went to school here locally. I left secondary school at a young age. Didn't have many qualifications. Didn't have any GCSEs. I initially worked in the Lee factory. So we made denim jeans and that kind of stuff. And then from there, I kind of started forging a kind of career in community work and youth and community work and stuff like that. So I was a volunteer in my local youth club and stuff like that. So in my sort of mid-20s, I found myself heading back to university through it was basically a sort of acquired prior learning kind of process through the University of Ulster. And I was lucky enough to find myself on my degree in community and youth work. So that was a big thing for me. It was a big thing possibly too for my family and friends. They would have seen me going back to university, and I was the first in my family to go to university. Very working class upbringing, very I wouldn't say poverty, because we always had what we needed. So my mother, God rest her, used to say, what you want and what you need are always two different things. That always resonated with me, you know. But we were always warm, we were always well fed, and I suppose most importantly, we were always well loved, you know. I suppose then after that, after heading back to university, and whilst at university, I continued on working in the community and all different youth projects, and worked in Belfast, and the crowd I worked with in Belfast, they were kind of Northern Ireland wide. So I found myself in all sorts of arts and parts across Northern Ireland or the north of Ireland. And that gave me a kind of a good insight into what was happening sort of on the ground for a lot of young people and a lot of families, you know. And I suppose the standout feature, or the standout issue, was basically lack of opportunities, and lack of opportunities for people who maybe didn't fit into the sort of academia or the academic section of society. And a lot of these kids, a lot of these young people, it would have affected their outlook. It would have affected how they felt about themselves and the relationships with the people around them and the people in their communities and the people in their families. And I always thought that was something that needed changed. And I was always trying to figure out, well, how could we change this, and what could we do? You know, like these big questions are still there today. They're still hanging over us. There's still always going to be a section of our community or our society that isn't catered for, or isn't really not cared about. They are cared about, but not exactly invested in, you know. I suppose and then I was always involved in like civil rights sort of activism and social justice projects, and I've done a bit of travel, been lucky enough to do a bit of travel, spent some time in Australia. You know, that kind of broadens your horizons and sort of gives you more of a kind of insight into maybe how other people live and so on and so forth, and maybe how other countries are governed and how their people are looked after and that sort of thing. So I mean, basically, I suppose to sum me up, I'm kind of on the ground community and youth worker, sort of / community leader, and that's really it. Like, there's no real airs and graces about me. You know, I'm just a kind of normal people person. And
what do you think what need to happen to convince unionists or ex-unionists or people with a British tradition to stay here?
They stay here. Well, they're Irish, and they're welcome in their own country. That would be my view on it, and that would be a view of a lot of other people. on the ground. Working class people are just that. They're working class people. They're not monsters. They're not, they're not people that can't think. They're not, it's about uniting the classes. It's not really about uniting, one religion or one identity or the other. It's like, I live in Galia, right? And I worked up in Belfast for a year for a youth organisation. And as far as I could see, and this was my, I actually seen this and working this on the ground, the young people of, say, the Shankill were experiencing the exact same issues as the young people in Galia were. So they're working class issues, and like I say, the green and orange kind of politic of the divide and conquer, that's wearing thin on people. And we've even to go back to what I was saying, and the shift in the politics, we've even seen a shift in loyalist politics, moving across to the alliance, and voting in kind of a more kind of liberal persons. So I believe there's definitely, what you say, a call for convincing, right? But there's also people within the nationalist Republican community who also might need convincing. They might think, oh, if we get in United Ireland, this isn't going to happen, or I'm going to lose my DLA car, or this, that, and the other, and all the rest of it. So there's a lot of undotted I's and uncrossed T's out there.
Why would English taxpayers tolerate money from the Treasury going into a political entity that is now part of another country?
Aye. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, like the sort of Northern Ireland or the north of Ireland type of thing, I mean, in a sense, it's going to benefit them in the long run, because in the long run, they're not going to have to pay that £10 billion subversion every year. So in the long, this is all on how it's sold. This is all on how people are going to be able to identify with it, right? And this goes back to the message, and goes back to the kind of language or terminologies that ultimately are going to be used. And we've seen that time and time again, where a certain theme has been set out, and people attach themselves to that theme. And it's definitely, they might have to chip in, but it's not going to be forever. You know what I mean? And it's going to be cheaper in the long run, because they're not going to have to hemorrhage that money to Ireland whenever she's standing on her own 2 feet. And as I say, the north of Ireland can, contribute to an all Ireland economy quite well. And there's a lot of bright, intelligent people here that we're losing out on, because the opportunities just aren't there for them. Unfortunately, we lose those people to the other countries. But if the opportunity was here for them, they could stay, and they could develop their businesses, and they could pay their taxes, and they could pay their wages of their employees, and generate income and all that sorts of thing. Northern Ireland just hasn't been given that chance. They sort of rise up, if you like, or come out of that kind of economic sort of spot that we're in now. And when I say that, I don't mean Belfast, because Belfast always seems to do really well, and there's loads of infrastructure projects, and plenty of places for university students and stuff like that. So it's about being part of something new. Let's be part of something new here. There's better ways and means. There's different ways that we can do living on this island together, without the conflict, without the poverty, without the economic stress, and there's something that we can do about it. And why don't we try? You know what I mean?